80 to 85% of financial brands lack a well-defined digital growth strategy that provides them with clarity and focus. And as a result, marketing, sales, and leadership teams end up getting stuck in a cycle of confusion, chaos, and conflict. So, how can organizations overcome common fears such as fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of failure, fear of success? Let's find out together on today's episode of the Banking on Digital Growth podcast.
You're listening to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast.
Welcome back to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. I'm Audrey Cannata, operations lead here at the Digital Growth Institute. And joining me for today's conversation is founder and CEO, James Robert Lay.
Hey, Audrey.
Hey, James Robert.
Good to share time with you.
Absolutely. As always, what's been going well for you?
Reflecting on progress, reflecting on the growth that we have experienced here over the first 2 quarters of the year, and really feeling excited about what's coming next in Q3 and Q4. We published Banking on Change, done about 5 keynote sessions around that book within the past 8 weeks. Got a lot of
been busy.
Pending. Yeah, exactly. Got a lot of pending opportunities ahead. We have quietly rolled out our optimized Banking on Digital Growth program to start the year, and have been guiding financial brands through that experience in the first and second quarter. But we also have new opportunities that are pending, and have some people waiting to start that process. And a lot of it is we want to make sure that we're guiding them through the experience that is going to create the greatest value for them, which is, I know exactly what we're talking about on today's episode, because change is hard, and change is scary, change is painful. And a lot of financial brands they know digital growth is important. They're seeing different, they're thinking differently, but then they get stuck in this emotive state here.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had a lot of conversations recently on our website, Secret Shopping Studies, which is step 1 of our optimized program. But we haven't had a whole lot of conversations on step 2, which is where we're going to take today's podcast. We just finished delivering a digital growth blueprint for an organization. And I really enjoyed kind of having more of a front row seat to this experience, which I haven't had before. And so I want to break down what the digital growth blueprint is, what it looks like, how it helps organizations. And then we're going to dig into a really interesting key finding that we had with this recent organization.
Well, this all comes back to why we do what we do. We're on a mission to help financial brands stop losing deposits and loans on their website. And it does begin with step 1, secret shop your website. And that then surfaces both blind spots and gaps, but also growth opportunities. And one of the many growth opportunities that we continue to uncover is, wow, this isn't just a marketing issue. This is a much deeper issue that we weren't aware of. It's marketing, it's sales, it's operations, it's technology, it's leadership. And so that then translates often into an organization moving into step 2, which is to get your digital growth blueprint. And it's here, the digital growth blueprint process, or the digital growth blueprint methodology, it has 3 steps. And the very first one, it starts with just a diagnostic. Where have you been? Where are you at? Where could you go next? That gives us clarity into each organization's uniqueness. Now, there are common patterns that we find, but I would say no digital growth blueprint is ever 100% the same, because
No, I actually had someone ask me that question yesterday.
really,
Yes, is they were interested in the blueprint and curious, and they go, "Well, this is this like a template that you just kind of fill out for each organization?" Which is a fair question for
sure.
sure. I said, "No, this is so deep and really unique and bespoke research here."
Well, I mean, what we're doing, particularly at the first stage of the process, completing the digital growth diagnostic, is we're uncovering and we're asking questions, we're probing
Yeah,
into areas that oftentimes individuals or teams from marketing, from sales, from leadership, they're not they're not thinking about, or B, they haven't thought about in a very long time. And so they're like, oh, those it's a great question. Um, and it does surface, I would say, some challenging emotions. And I'm bringing up the emotional piece here because we're very mindful of that.
right.
I mean, even just yesterday, we were talking with a technology organization who is interested in bringing our website secret shopping piece of this process, of this methodology, to their clients. And their words, we're looking for someone with a good bedside manner. Um,
Yeah, right.
and I would say that's something I'm very mindful of. Like, when
Yeah,
when I go and work with an organization, I'm brutally kind. Um,
ruthlessly
I'm
kind.
ruthlessly kind. I've, I'm going to be kind, but I'm also going to be tough. I'm going to be hard, and I'm going to ask the
You're
hard
going to be
questions,
honest,
and I'm going to be honest. Exactly.
right?
And if I think about one of the recent experiences here, because the the diagnostic that leads into the second step, because we're able to take the perspective shared from marketing, from sales, from leadership, anywhere between 10, 15, no more than 20 people are sharing perspective in the initial diagnostic. The next step is to go
Depends on
and
the size of the
it
organization.
depends on the size of the organization. Exactly. The next step is then to go and facilitate a team alignment workshop. And that's where we're able to take the perspective shared by the individuals participating in the diagnostic and start to uncover where you're aligned, which is great. But once again, I'm one who picks up on patterns fairly quickly
Mhm.
where you're misaligned. That's what I'm more interested in, is the misalignment, because it's the misalignment, it's the gaps, it's the blind spots. Those are going to be the biggest impediment to future growth. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. And having that, really being that objective person to come in, and because it's hard to see when you're in it. And I think you do your analogy of like being in the bottle and you can't see what's on the outside, which is normal and understandable.
Well, this goes back to the question that you got asked yesterday, which I'm glad you surfaced that.
Yeah, I hadn't told you that yet.
No, you didn't. So, diagnostic leads to team alignment. Team alignment is then what really helps to facilitate the digital growth blueprint,
Mhm.
because it's where you're aligned. What are those opportunities to build upon that foundation?
Yep.
But also, just as important, if not even more important, where are you misaligned?
Yep.
Because a lot of times the blueprint is wrapped around improving the alignment of the misalignment, to
Right.
close those gaps, to eliminate those blind spots.
Yeah.
And that's the uniqueness of the blueprint. And I want to make this very practical, because there was an organization that we recently guided through this second step, get your digital growth blueprint. So they did the diagnostic.
Yep.
They then went into the team alignment workshop, which is it's a half-day experience. And the big misalignment, it was already being surfaced in the responses within the diagnostic, but the biggest misalignment that I don't think that they were aware of, and you were part of this experience, you saw this yourself, was one of the questions that we ask is, why should I open an account or apply for a loan at your institution, at your organization?
Yeah.
And I
I think
started
if you yeah.
started picking on that. What were you going to say?
Well, a few people, it was interesting because of course we got a lot of, similar responses that we get a lot, generic. And several people said, I honestly don't know how to answer that. I'm not sure. I haven't answered that question before.
Yeah. And the follow-up to it was, how are you really different from other organizations? And I think that is where you're leaning into. And so when surfacing this, the CEO of this organization was paying attention. And one of the
Oh,
things I
yeah.
remember sharing with her was, number one, you're not alone. Like, this is one of the biggest areas of misalignment within an organization. But if we don't address this early and often, nothing else matters. Yeah, you can go and improve your tech stack, and you might be able to do some ad campaigns, but the belief of why someone should open an account, why should someone apply for a loan, that belief, that response is what drives then the behavior of positioning, of product mix, of product packaging, of production of content, of promotion of that content. It all comes back to this one question.
Yeah. It's your competitive advantage.
And for this particular organization, their response was like everyone else. We have good rates. We have great service, and we're community. We're for our people. We take care of our people. Our members love us. I'm like, it's got to be deeper than that.
Got to be something else.
You know what was missing is what is missing probably 95% of the responses that we get to this question is, you should open an account or apply for a loan with us because we have expertise and we're going to guide you. We're going to help you get you to where you want to be. And it's funny because the response of why should I open an account or apply for a loan, it's typically inward facing. It's about us, the organization. Right. Now, it could be a we statement. We do this to help you achieve that. See, that becomes more of a positioning statement that can be shared throughout the organization.
Right.
The other finding that really would closely align with this, and this came out of the team alignment workshop once again, that was informed by the diagnostic study, there is a lack of focus.
Yes.
Into who the ideal account holder was for this organization.
And that's the part I want to highlight now. It's, you started in doing the diagnostic and the team alignment workshop, you started to see and you started to hypothesize a little bit. You noticed this lack of focus, and there was some hints on a direction. And one of the things that you do in this process is, before delivering the digital growth blueprint, you sit down and have one-on-one conversations with key stakeholders. And I appreciated getting to witness these. And you sat down with, I think, what, 7 or 8 people?
7 or 8, yeah.
7 or 8 people for half an hour. And you took some of the findings and a little bit of your hypothesis, and you just started asking questions. And it was a safe place. It was all confidential, but it was fascinating to see, no one was listening to each other. was fascinating to see, and nobody knew what questions we were asking, but there were patterns. There was a specific pattern that was being surfaced, and it was like it was there all along. Like they had this there, they had this vision and this focus there, but it just wasn't being surfaced because they weren't having these conversations.
It was never articulated with clarity. And I want to roll back. So, following the team alignment workshop that's informed by the diagnostic study, the patterns start to become fairly apparent. But I'm also very curious into having the individual conversations with key stakeholders. And I remember who was leading this initiative, they specifically mentioned that morning, everyone that you pick for a one-on-one is who I would have recommended that you pick. And
because it's not until we do the diagnostic and the team alignment workshop that these one-on-ones are selected.
Correct. And a lot of it comes down to the responses in the diagnostic, but then also the patterns that come out of the workshop. And when sitting down and essentially testing some hypothesis against these leaders and these key stakeholders, this particular organization had moved away from a market segment that they had served and created value for decades. And then about a decade ago, they changed their strategic direction. They expanded the market of who they were going to quote unquote market to. But they're in a major metro area.
Yep.
Their voice is getting drowned out from every other financial brand communicating the same exact thing to about a population of maybe, I don't know, if we look at the greater metro area for this particular organization, 3 to 5 million people, more or less, when you take into account all the different counties.
Yep.
Well, they have fallen victim to competing in the bloodied waters of a red ocean. The good news was when I sat down and had these conversations the following day after the team alignment workshop, and we went one-on-one, they knew what they needed to do.
Yeah. They self-actualized.
And it came from just asking the hard questions. And so when we came back that afternoon, because we broke for lunch, and you and I went through some of the key insights that were gathered through the one-on-one. We put together the blueprint.
Yep.
And then we shared the blueprint in the afternoon. And what we shared with them, we shared some key performance benchmarks. We provided some insight and recommendations on how they could optimize their digital lead generation strategies. We looked at technologies that could support those lead generation strategies. But it really all came back to, for this organization, and I think this is also where no blueprint is exactly the same. There's no template. There's no format.
Right.
Now there is a format and a framework for how we are guiding an organization through the diagnostic study. We're looking at 9 different lenses, and those 9 different lenses are what I wrote about in Banking on Digital Growth. But the insights and the recommendations that come out of that are unique to each organization, all the way down to how do you measure performance? How do you measure progress? And the biggest thing that they took away was they needed to transform their go-to-market. They needed to go back to the core of who they had created the greatest value for to begin with in the first place for decades, but they also needed to transform how they operated. And so that for them is opening up a whole new opportunity to where they're moving to step 3 of the banking on digital growth methodology, which is then now to build your digital growth engine, which I know is a conversation for another day. But
Yeah.
that's why we break down this process when we break down this methodology into 3 steps. Secret shop your website, get your digital growth blueprint, build your digital growth engine. Because change is hard, change is scary. And there's a lot of emotion that goes into pushing back and resisting change. What we're looking for is 1% growth. It would be 1% better than what we were yesterday. It's measures of the progress that we're making and not this ideal perfection that is ahead of us, because things will change. Things will transform as you keep moving towards that future state.
Yeah. It's a great way to wrap up today's conversation, James Robert. And the last little piece I just wanted to make sure to add is, this experience with the blueprint and this team and this organization, self-actualizing and realizing this, their focus. It was so beautiful because they had the answers all along. They had it. They all knew. It wasn't like you came in there and, told them something different and new, and it was your ideas. It was them. And I think this process just helped them surface it. And so they really get the celebration.
Yeah. Like I get to go away and, they get to do their thing. They know the danger though, that as they move forward, yeah, they're seeing different. Yeah, they're thinking different, but they know the importance that feeling and emotion are play so that they continue to act, be, and do different. And that's where they're looking for continued coaching, accountability, so that they don't fall back on the previous perspective mind state that they were in before.
Yeah, that's the whole part of the process. It is one step at a time, and the accountability and coaching and guidance is massive to keep things moving, because we know that motivation fades. So looking for that long-term growth is very important. That's step 3.
Motivation. It's like a muscle. Think about yourself. You go to a conference, you come back highly motivated, but motivation is like a muscle. Inspiration is like a light or a candle. Motivation is like a muscle. It's going to eventually tire and fatigue. Inspiration, like a candle, is going to eventually, flame out, burn out. There has to be some fallback structure that creates that accountability so that you keep moving forward when things get tough, that you keep moving forward when you're a little bit, I don't know. Well, let's go back and let's have that conversation. So secret shop your website, get your digital growth blueprint, build your digital growth engine. This is how you can stop losing loans and deposits online on your website.
Absolutely. Thank you, James Robert.
Thank you, Audrey. This has been a lot of fun, as always.
Yeah. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Banking on Digital Growth podcast.